A wave of revolution. A wave of revolution has flooded the Mideastern world and is threatening the stability of many tyrannical regimes with different reactions. And the question can be asked, what does it have to do with the Torah? And what does a Jew say about it? I will tell you. In the Ethics of the Fathers, Reb Chanina Skana Kohanim says, "Have mitpalel bishlomo shel malchut." Pray for the safety and the security of the authority, because without the authority, ish esre'eu chaim bla'o, a man would swallow his neighbor. In other words, a harsh regime is better than anarchy, for anarchy leads to destruction. And before you get rid of a regime, you must know what the results will be after the regime is gone. So people say no. People have been influenced by the American experience and wish their freedom because they have Twitter, because they have the internet. Let me tell you a little bit about a demonstration and the power of a mob in the demonstration as it's found in this week's Torah portion. Monday's Torah portion of Parshas Kisisa, which is in the midst of all of this turbulence, talks about a demonstration that took place at the palace of the vice president, the viceroy of the Jewish people. A mob went up to the home of Aaron the high priest and demanded action. Moses was gone, and he wasn't coming back. And we need a replacement. Therefore, they told him, we want you to make an idol, an icon, that shall serve as our symbol of unity to run our affairs. And this, of course, is the story of the creation of the golden calf. What can we learn from this? There was a mob. Were all the people of the mob angry, evildoers? The answer is no. The mob was not angry for evil purposes. The mob was concerned. The mob wanted action. The mob wanted help for a legitimate concern. The leader was gone. They needed replacement. What took place was that a few people directed the energy and the enthusiasm of the mob in the way that they wanted the results to be. The danger of a spontaneous revolution that's coming from the people is not the revolution itself, but the people who are placing their efforts to direct the revolution in a particular way in order to take over afterwards. Going from a God who is the creator of the universe, giving laws that are just and fair for all of the citizenry of Israel, replacing it were people who were the cultists of the Kaphites, who believed in a totally different ideal, in a totally different system that gave preference to the rich and to the powerful and tread on the rights of the average individual. But the masses did not know this at the time that they supported this movement for a replacement for Moses. When I was a young man, there was a revolution, and a famous revolutionary captured the minds and the hearts of the New York Times. and the left-wing media. Fidel Castro and his cohort, Che Guevara, became the symbols of revolt against tyranny. The dictator Batista was deposed, and everyone was excited over this new revolutionary who was going to bring humanity back to Cuba. Instead, has brought darkness for more than half a century. Darkness and servitude, enslaving an industrious and creative populace, bringing them back hundreds of years backwards in terms of their production, controlling the economy and the minds, trying to control the minds of these people, enslaving them in a terrible enslavement. That was the result of the enthusiastic support by the left-wing media of Fidel Castro. So what is the Torah lesson for the revolutionary process that's a tsunami? It's going across the entire globe. The answer is as follows. A revolution is only as good as the principles upon which it is based. And before a revolution should be accepted and received by the world at large, the revolution must issue the principles upon which it is based. There is, to my knowledge, only two such revolutions. One, where the principles were laid out in the midst of the revolution. A second, where the principles were laid out before the revolution. Only two countries in the world, the United States and Israel. In the United States, we had people who put their lives for the principle of no taxation without representation. It was a movement to get rid of the oppressive hand of King George. But the articulations of the principles of this revolution could only take place a year after Concord in 1776 in Philadelphia by the signing of the Declaration of Independence. In Israel, there was a revolution prior to the declaration of the state. The founder of that revolution was a group of idealistic boys. My father was a member of that same group. They were called the Revisionists. And their leader became Menachem Begin. And prior to the beginning of the revolution, the principles of that revolution were laid out. The principles upon which a nation and a world could rally around, based upon justice, based upon freedom of a people from its oppressor, based upon the rights of the individual in all the rights that God has given them. And this is the message that the President of the United States has an obligation to ring out. Yes, we support you if your principles are the principles of freedom, the same principles which we established and made known to the world in 1776